Hello, everyone. Welcome. Wow. I'm so excited for this session. I'm so excited to feel all of your energy here. I'm recognizing some familiar faces. It's always wonderful to see who's in the room and to feel you even more deeply through seeing you. So if you have the option to take off your or to turn on your video while you're coming in, do so. And I'm so curious where you are in the world and where you are on your journey as we're settling in. If you feel to, there's absolutely no obligation to do anything. But if you feel to, you can type in the chat where you are on your journey. It's beautiful, Anastasia, to feel the sacred birthing energy in the space. Beautiful. And it's always good to know how many we have in the room. So if you have babies in your womb or babies on your breast, then let us know who's with you and where are you on your journey. Thank you for taking the time. Elizabeth and Neil are still getting settled in and working out some technical um, things. And so that gives me the time to welcome you all and just to express my gratitude. Yeah, this is only going to be 60 minutes. So we have 60 whole minutes with Elizabeth and Neil, and you all, wherever you are in the world, and with everything that you have going on in your life, took the time to be here. And I really want to acknowledge that and express my appreciation to that. I am so happy to be here. Welcome to our monthly VIP guest speaker session. Each and every month, we host a special guest who we really consider to be true pioneers and way showers in the realms of fertility, conception, pregnancy, birth, and family and community health. We have an incredible lineup of globally recognized speakers this year. And to find the links to register for those events, you can join our free community on School or follow us closely on Instagram or subscribe to our newsletter. And Ashley will provide you all the links you need for that in the chat. Whether you're here with us live or catching the replay, thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for your courage to be here, your courage to be born, your courage to be traversing the currents of life on planet Earth at this time. Just give yourself a moment to settle in. If you're driving, please focus on the road. Um, and if you have the luxury to be able to pour yourself a cup of warm something, tea or something, and grab a notebook, then do that. This month, we have Elizabeth Carman and her husband, Neil Carman, presenting for us. And I'm curious, please put in the chat if you've read any one of their books. I have, and their books were among the works that inspired me into birth work and really influenced and affirmed many of the experiences that I had as an adult, remembering my own birth, pre-birth, and conception experiences, which for those of you who have been in this community, you know that the awareness of the baby's experience really forms the foundation of all of our programs and ethos. Elizabeth is a pioneering author and researcher of pre-birth consciousness. She's best known for her work alongside of her husband, who you also get to meet today, Dr. Neil Carman, exploring the incarnation process from spirit to human life. Her background is in psychology, transpersonal psychology, interdisciplinary studies, prenatal and perinatal education, and she has decades teaching inner development and meditation. Elizabeth began documenting communications between mothers and their unborn children in the late 80s, revealing memories of life before conception, the journey into the womb, and conscious awareness during pregnancy and birth. Neil is a biologist and an environmental scientist, and he brings an incredible, rigorous scientific lens forward that is really shaped by his work in biological sciences and consciousness expanding meditation research. These guys have been researching all of these amazing themes since the early 70s. Try to imagine, have you invested 55 plus years into anything? They are so dedicated and so devoted to their work. In this presentation today, they'll be taking us into soul agreements and prenatal planning. So they're going to be taking us into things like the intentions and agreements related to the time before birth and how souls plan their lives, choosing specific circumstances, challenges, important relationships, parents, to facilitate their spiritual growth. They'll also share stories of children's preconception memories and mothers who communicate with future children before conception. There's going to be time at the end for Q&A. You can feel free to type your questions in the chat or save them for the end, where you can actually voice your questions and interact with Elizabeth and Neil. And Elizabeth and Neil, if you have another preference for how everyone here interacts with you today, just let them know when you come on. The circle that you're currently taking part in is part of our Transform into Birth community of mothers and fathers and birth keepers all around the world who are deeply invested in writing a new story for our future generations. Transform into Birth is our signature birth preparation series, which centers the baby's experience. And you can enroll in that at different tiers depending on the experience you want to have inside the community. And all of those tiers for everyone on this call today or watching the replay is 40% off. Ashley will put the link and the coupon code Cosmic40 in the chat so that you can easily find it. Elizabeth and Neil, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for being here with us. It is truly an honor. And I really believe, no matter how much inner work we do, no matter how awakened or conscious we think we are, if our elders are void from our everyday life, we are still malnourished and disembodied. And it's one of my heart's greatest joys to bridge our growing global community with the true elders and wisdom keepers of our time who can help us to grow and blossom in the right direction for ourselves, for our children, our grandchildren, great grandchildren, for our lineages. So thank you all for being part of this, and we would love to see you in future sessions. I'm going to check in with you now, Ashley. How are things going with Elizabeth and Neil with their tech?
Thank you. I am going in private messages with them. Things are still not quite sorted out. I believe she just joined on a.
I can see
There we
you.
go. There we go. All right.
Oh, amazing. Okay, we can see you. That's a big step. And now connecting to audio, it says. Wonderful. And I'll also say that Elizabeth and Neil sent in advance 4 incredible PDFs. I looked over those a few days ago and was so impressed. And you'll all get those in the email after this, or they may also post them here in the chat. Oh, Marissa,
Yes.
congratulations. Soon entering your 3rd trimester. Woo! I think we can hear
Hi.
you.
Okay, can you hear us?
We hear you and we see you. Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you.
good.
I'm handing it straight over to you guys. Take it away.
Oh, thank you
Okay,
so much. We were on Firefox and
okay,
it
honey.
wouldn't work. So we went to Safari and everything's perfect. So thank you for all your patience. And we have four main stories that we want to share with you. And these are stories that involve preconception communications. The mother connects with the incoming child prior to conception, and stories involving that particular child in that pregnancy where the mother communicated, that child has the memory. So this is a very rare type of validation supporting both sides of the experience. Validating the mother isn't crazy, validating the child isn't crazy. So the first one I want to share is the mother's name is Rose, and she had a little 4-year-old daughter, Jasmine, who kept telling her, Mommy, I have a brother in heaven and he's coming soon. Her mother said, What? What are you talking about? Her mother had since the child was born, had an IUD, was not planning to have another baby. And so she would just poo-poo the child's memory. Oh, Mommy, I remember we were in heaven and you came to heaven. You were in heaven too, and you chose us. And so this went on and on for several years, off and on. Consistent story, never changed. And the mother just didn't accept any of it. She said, Well, if your brother's in heaven, that's where he should stay. That's fine with me. So finally, what happened is she had a special dream, and she found herself in an ethereal room full of white light, and there was a special guide who greeted her dressed in white with gold accents. And she said, What? Why am I here? Oh, you are here to pick your next child. And he showed her three babies. Baby number one was not going to live to be born. Baby number two would live a short life. And baby number three, healthy, happy, long-lived baby. She said to the guide, Well, am I being selfish for choosing the healthiest baby? And he said, Whatever choice you want to make, it's your decision. It's up to you. You're the one making the decision. So she said, I want the healthiest one. And the next morning when she woke up, she was elated. She thought, Oh, I'm going to have a baby. And I picked my baby. And then she thought, Oh, I've got an IUD. I can't get pregnant. But she thought, Well, Jasmine's been saying for the last couple years that she has a brother in heaven. Maybe something's going to happen. And so she told her husband about it and said, Well, I'm going to stop drinking alcohol and eat good food. I'm going to change my diet just in case there's something to this. Well, 2 months later, she went to the doctor with pregnancy symptoms, and the doctor said, Well, there's no way you could be pregnant. You have that IUD, and it's a very good one. But I'll check you anyway, since you're so concerned and convinced that you might be pregnant. Well, she came back and said she was pregnant, and Jasmine told her, Well, I had a heads up. I had a dream, and my daughter told me. So, anyway, this is a beautiful story where you have this child giving her memories so beautifully, and did not waver no matter how much the mother poo-pooed the situation.
Right. So it shows us that, the universe has kind of a glass ceiling. The child was able to see that, oh, I have a brother who's going to come from heaven. And even though the mother couldn't, see through the glass ceiling, it was happening all behind the scenes. And this is kind of the miraculous nature of what's happening, all around us. We may not be able to tune into it, but it's going on whether we like it or not. So we encountered so many of these kinds of stories, especially the children who, the parents are very confused about what the kids are saying, and they don't want to believe it, but sometimes they do. And so this is one example. And the baby was born. Okay, it was a healthy pregnancy. The IUD was taken out, and everything was fine.
And she has a very special relationship with her little brother. They're just, the best buddies. And let's move on to another story, which is even just as spectacular in our opinion. In fact, we turned it into a whole chapter in our book, Two Cosmic Cradle, Spiritual Dimensions of Life Before Birth. And this is the story of Elizabeth and her mother, Leslie. And first of all, let's start with the memories, although the mother was having preconception experiences prior to this. The mother was seeing a little boy in her mind's eye. She knew she was going to have a little boy. And she was happily married. And then she had a miscarriage. And the miscarriage followed a very intense argument with her and her husband. And I think the baby was like 11 weeks into the pregnancy. And they had a fierce argument. They were speculating, well, what are we going to do if the baby is a boy? Would we circumcise the baby? And the mother was intensely opposed to that. And the father says, oh, no, we want him to look normal in the gym room. They had a fierce argument. And the next morning she miscarried in the shower, and she felt the baby come out, and she said, oh my God. She looked down, she said, she saw it go down the drain. And she confirmed it with the doctor. And then about a year later, she is feeling she's going to have two daughters. Prior to that, she felt she was going to have a little boy and girl, but she was seeing in her mind's eye that she had two little girls on their way. And she bought two little cherubims holding their hands, and little statues, and she put it in their bedroom, and she told her husband, these are our future daughters, just humorously saying that. And then
about a year.
Yeah.
It was about a year later, and the doctor said, it's fine. You've healed from the miscarriage. And so Leslie, said, okay. She sent a message up through the glass ceiling to the baby waiting and said, I'm ready. Meet me in the bedroom tonight. And so she conceived. And now there's a little bit of a problem. Leslie was a DES daughter. Her mother had taken diethylstilbestrol, even though Leslie, appeared to be fully normal, but a lot of DES women had difficulties with pregnancies or even getting pregnant. But anyway, so she is pregnant and goes through and has a full-term baby girl. So the baby's born. It's a C-section, and Leslie had hoped to have a natural birth. So after a few years, the little baby girl starts talking, and this is Elizabeth. And she tells her mother, Mommy, I was in your tummy twice. The first time I went down the drain. And the second time I came out like a zipper. It was a C-section. And Leslie was like, wow, that's amazing. And so, to this day, Elizabeth, who's now over 40 years of age, we've met both Elizabeth and her mother, Leslie. They are featured in book 2 and the chapter, I Was in Your Tummy Twice. And to this day, Elizabeth, who's about 42 years of age, has full memories of both the first pregnancy and the second memory and the second pregnancy, okay? She's remarkably a gifted person. And so anyway, that's one of a kind story.
And I want to also point out that Elizabeth was very empowered in that first pregnancy. She knew she was a boy and that this was going to disturb the marriage and end in a divorce. And she chose to leave. So she opted out of that pregnancy. She chose to be miscarried. And when she was in the spiritual world after that, she had 5 choices of parents for the next incarnation. And one of them was this current couple, and she said there was no question. This is the couple that she needed and wanted, and she came back to them. So hopefully that's clear. That's a quick rundown of that story. We're going fast to make up for lost time here. And the third story is, it comes from Dr. Gladys McGarry's book, Physician Within You. And she tells a beautiful story of a 17-year-old girl, one of her patients, who had become pregnant. This is during Vietnam times. And this is a 17-year-old girl. Her partner is going off to war, and she's planning to start college, and she realizes she's a few months pregnant. So she has a conversation with the baby. And this is something Dr. McGarry recommends. And she told the baby all of these circumstances I just said, and that we will meet again soon. You know, it was kind of like, this isn't the time for the pregnancy, come back later. And a few years later, what's interesting, and then a couple months later, she miscarried. She did not have an abortion or anything like that. She just spontaneously miscarried. Then 2 years later, her best friend, who's happily married, is pregnant and gives birth to a baby girl on the same date that Susan had her miscarriage. And Susan awoke in the middle of the night with the message, "Mommy, I'm coming back." And she knew it was her little daughter that she had promised, "I'll see you again. We'll be together again." So she came back. She ran to the hospital the next morning. And when the baby opened its eyes and looked at Susan, the baby had a smile on its face. So she felt, this is a confirmation. This is my daughter returned. And because she was good friends with the mother, she saw her often, and the daughter was always running up to her with a big hug and blowing kisses, and no one took it as anything unusual. But then what happened when the little girl, Terry, was 3 years old, the mother, the friend, was pregnant again, and Susan went to visit. And little Terry comes running to her and sits in her lap and gives her a kiss and a hug. And then shortly after that, she says to Susan, "I was in your tummy before." And Susan thought, whoa, what's... She knew it, but it had always been a secret. She hadn't spoken out. "Oh, no, you weren't in my tummy. You were in your mommy's tummy." "Oh, not the first time. The first time I was in your tummy." "Oh, what did you do in there?" "Oh, I cried." "Well, why did you cry?" "Because they said I couldn't stay." "Well, who are they?" "Oh, they are the ones who brought me to you. They said I couldn't stay. I had to go." "Well, how did that happen?" And she said, there was a silver cord and they pulled me away. Yeah. And her hand dropped down to her navel area. They pulled me away. So another miraculous encounter here where we have a little child coming back, almost similar to Elizabeth Mitchell, where the second story, where a child comes back. So in a sense, they're reincarnation stories.
Right, but a lot of children don't necessarily remember these. We have encountered, quite a few, but it's not easy to find them. We've been extremely blessed, we want to say, in locating mothers in the U.S., around the world, even in Japan, where a Japanese nurse already had a little boy named Sho, and she was pregnant, but she miscarried. And Sho told her, "Oh, Mommy, my sister is leaving, and but she might come back." And so the mother realized, Tommy, that she had a bad diet, okay? And she needed to, she's an obstetrical nurse in Japan, and she needed to really, eat better. So after a few more years, she's pregnant again. And her little son, Sho, says, "Hey, mommy, the baby's back. My sister's back." Okay. And so, then Tommy was asking Sho, "Well, how do you think I should give birth?" "Oh, mommy, you don't need to go to the hospital or the clinic. It's just going to be you and my sister." What? So anyway, after a few months, she is like near, full term, and they go off on a trip up to visit a retreat center near the Mount Fuji in Japan. And when they get there, the mother, Tommy, goes into a bedroom and locks the door, and she starts going into bliss and dancing and singing. And after an hour or so, she gives birth to a beautiful little baby girl, Yui, who looks at her smiling. And so finally, after a few hours, the mother, Tommy, and Yui come out of the room, and she shows everybody, "I've just given birth to this beautiful little girl." And so a few years later pass, and the little girl, Yui, confirms to her mother, "Oh, mommy, you had a bad diet, and I didn't like some of the food you were eating, so I left. And then you cleaned up your diet, and I came back." So we met Tommy a few years ago at in Denver at an international convention, APA, and just an amazing person. So she's got these two incredibly gifted children, and the children are always telling her amazing stories about where they came from. And so let's see, what others?
I also want to mention that when she was going through the process of just dancing spontaneously in ecstasy in that closed room, she looked at her body at one point and she said her body was pure light. And people can read more of the details of that in our book.
In book 3. Yeah. Babies are cosmic. So that's why we chose that title, because we find these babies are absolutely miraculous. The whole process of the pregnancy cannot be explained. I have all kinds of degrees, a PhD in the biological sciences, and basically what we know in biology and medicine are very crude metaphors of what's going on, even inside of our cells, and the development of the fetus is really, it's just one miracle after another. And so that's why the medical doctors aren't being taught about what's really going on with the biochemistry and the genetics. And so these babies are up there looking, they've got computers up in this higher dimension, and they can look through space and time. And we hear these stories worldwide, about the computers, and they're able to find parents that they would like to come and be born to. And so, but then when the parents hear these kinds of stories, they don't know what to think, because none of this, we haven't been educated about this in our families and schools, churches, anything. There's a tremendous, gap of knowledge about, the spiritual beings that we are, and that bringing a child into the world is a highly spiritualized process. And
so there's a lot of stories like that about the computers, or looking through the window in heaven, looking down, looking through like a portal, seeing the parents. One little boy said that he had seen his mother when she was a child riding her blue bike. "Well, how did you see that?" her sister asked. "Oh, did you see a photograph?" And he says, "No, when I was in heaven, there's a window in heaven, and I could look down and see Mama riding her bike." And he told Mama, "Mama, don't you know there's windows in heaven?" And it just, natural to him, that's his memory, and assumes everybody has that memory, but no. And a lot of them remember being in God's house. They'll say, I was in God's house and I looked down and saw you and I wanted to be with you. I wanted to be your friend, telling the mother that. And the mother said, we don't use God language in our house. We don't use that word heaven or any of that. And these children come out with these words that the mothers are insistent. There hasn't been any exposure to that. So,
What about Beverly?
No, we have one more major story to share, and that is Beverly and her son, Taylor. And Beverly is a special, wise woman with a lot of clairvoyant, clairaudient, psychic abilities. She was born that way. And ever since she was a child, she said, I knew I was going to have a special son. I would only have one child, and he would be a special son. And as the years went by, she had communication with him. And she said that he was her father in past lives. So they had a very deep connection. And then once she got married, she was hoping, she told her husband, we're just going to have one child and a special son. And he said, that's fine. And then she was diagnosed right about that time with cervical cancer. And the doctor said, we've got to take out your uterus. And there's no chance you're going to have any babies. I'm sorry. And she says, oh, please don't do that. And save enough of my cervix that I can deliver. And the doctor agreed and said, you have a 10% chance of getting pregnant. Well, 6 years went by after that surgery, and she didn't have any birth control. They were open to getting pregnant at any moment, and nothing happened until one day she was fully aware when that baby was conceived. She has a very special experience to share there. And then what happens is when this little baby is born and is just a few years old, she's talking to her friend who's pregnant about the due date and said, oh, you can't pay any attention to what the doctors tell you. Look at Taylor here. He was due on the 15th of the month and he didn't come, and they tried all these things. They tried induction and and nothing worked. Finally, they took him out with cesarean. And little Taylor's just a couple years old, and he's sitting there saying, Mommy, I wasn't ready to come out. It was like my own private swimming pool and all I could eat. And what that refers to is that Beverly was always eating grapes and cottage cheese regularly. And that's the message he was giving her psychically. He wanted grapes and cottage cheese, and the doctor confirmed you've got a perfect diet. I don't know how you're doing it. She would, of course, be eating other foods, but
chocolate also.
Oh, he liked
she
chocolate.
Would have a whole meal, and then her husband would say, "What's going on? Now you're eating chocolate, and this is what the baby wants." Okay, chocolate, grapes, and cottage cheese. But the doctor told her she had a very good diet. Okay, and she didn't need to take any extra vitamins or minerals or anything.
So Taylor was a very special little boy. One day she told him, he's just like 2 years old, oh, Taylor, I'm so happy you're my son. You're such a special little boy. I'm proud of you. And he looked at her and he said, but Mommy, didn't you know I chose you to be my mommy? And she said, oh, what? What did you say? Well, I chose you to be my mommy because I knew you would take good care of me, and I love you. And he said, but we cannot do this unless we both agree. And she said, well, it works good for me. How about you? And he said, yeah, it's great. And so off he runs to play with his toys, and she's shaking her head saying, this child just had this advanced Buddhist philosophy conversation, and he's not even old enough to understand the words he's spitting out. But anyway, she just loved little Taylor and had all kinds of experiences with him. For example, another one I can remember is when she was 6 months pregnant, they were always in communication about what to do. Maybe I should go back a step and say that when they were on their way, she was 3 months pregnant, and she felt there was some connection, but not physically. And when they were on their way to a Renaissance festival, driving down the expressway, she says, boom, he came in. And she says to her husband driving, did you feel that? And he said, yeah, they could feel the energy shift. And all throughout that time at the Renaissance festival, she had to say, well, do you want to go to this booth or that booth or do this or that? So they were always in communication with each other and deciding. She said it was like, prior to this, it was like I lived in my own apartment and now I had a roommate and we had to decide on everything together. So they were very compatible like that. But one day she was 6 months pregnant and it was Christmas time and some friends were having a big party and she thought, oh, I really want to get out and see some friends and have some fun, celebrate the holidays a little bit. I don't want to stay at home. But she knew Taylor did not like loud music. So he's 6 months in the womb and then she's conversing with him. Well, I want to go and I'm going to go to this party. And he's, no, don't go. I don't like the loud noise. So they're having that conversation, but she decided to ignore his desire for peace and quiet. And they went to the party. She told her husband, if he starts complaining, we'll have to leave, but let's give it a shot. So they come into the party hall and there's big Bose speakers blaring out music. And he started kicking and kicking and kicking. And they sat down at a little table to have a little glass of soda pop. And she said to her husband, he is kicking so hard, I can't, we've got to leave. So she said we weren't even there 5 or 10 minutes. And as soon as they walk out the door, he stops kicking. And she said, oh, you little stinker, you ruined my party night. Anyway, he won that battle on that one.
So Taylor is now in his 30s and he's a remarkable child. And he has a lot of memories about being in the womb and choosing his mother and father. And we knew them where we were living in Austin, Texas. And so when Elizabeth wanted to interview Beverly, Beverly said, well, I usually don't do interviews. She's a well-known clairvoyant. But she said, yeah, I want you to interview me. And what she gave was just pages and pages of material. It was just so much because she had memories of many past lives, okay? And being up in heaven before this life and saying, well, I want to go down and participate in this earthly realm as it's going through a big shift in consciousness. But she said, I need to be armed. I want to be very awake and aware. And then she knew she was only going to have one child, one pregnancy, which was quite amazing. Beverly is a very short person, and we felt very blessed to, have met her and heard about the story of Taylor, who's now, fully grown adult.
So those are, let me just encapsulate, we've just gone through in detail to some degree 4 basic cases where the mother, and in the case of Beverly, she had all these communications. And so that was also emphasized. So they had communication with their incoming child before conception. And then the child has memories of his pre-birth and selecting. So what we're talking about here is there's an agreement. Both sides are agreeing to this, whether parents remember this or not, or children remember it or not. We have made a decision, and in many cases that we're finding in the stories we've encountered, they'll have 3 choices of parents or 5 choices of parents. So it's not anybody forcing a particular situation. And some of them believe that they will learn more lessons through difficulties, and they do choose the more challenging path. So that's kind of a little wrap up on 4 stories, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Wow, thank you so much. I loved listening to these stories, Neil and Elizabeth. And I feel they're so important in this time where so many of us are outsourcing and looking outside of ourselves to find out what's best for me and or my baby. When this channel of communication between mother baby, even from the time of preconception, is always there. I observe that with a lot of the mothers that I work with, and in our fertility conception birth prep program, healing the parent's own birth and pre-birth and preconception experiences is really the cornerstone of that work. And what I've discovered over the years is that these are a living archive in all of us. We all, in fact, have this memory. And so I will start off the question to you guys. And I know everyone else here has questions and insights and things to share as well. But would you say that remembering is more innate and forgetting is more developmental?
Boy, that's a very good question. I think a lot of it depends upon the family that the person is born into. I had memories from the time I was very tiny. I had older brothers and sisters, and I only talked to my mother about these areas because I knew the other family members would think I was a little bit nutty. But my mother, I was very close to her. I was a natural birth. I was breastfed, and I'm intact. So I praise my mother all my life. Okay, for the wonderful body that she created for me to live in. So that's a very interesting question. Now, I think if the person can handle the memories, then it's going to be in there. But with my own family members, when I've tried to talk to them about childhood, they don't have any memories, and I have a near photographic memory, videotapes through my whole life that I can pull up anytime. But they don't necessarily want to have these memories, and I cherish them. So that's one of the things that brought Elizabeth and I together. Okay, is that she was interviewing some others and about the amazing pregnancies and births, and I said, "Oh, this is more than a magazine article. This is a book or a series of books." And I had a very powerful spiritual revelation. So that's kind of how we got together and wrote these books. And she is the lead researcher and investigator, writer. But I've made sure to put a kind of a cosmic spin throughout everything we've been writing. And it's been an amazing journey. We started in the 1980s. So I think, yeah, a lot of people can't handle these memories, so they're not going to be able to access them. I have a brother who's a few years older, and he doesn't remember anything about his childhood. And he asked me, "Oh, do you remember that or this?" I said, "Oh, I have all these memories. What do you want to know?"
So I think that a lot of influences come in for the forgetting. You're going to find children who have some memories, but they don't hear others speaking about it. Or if they do speak about it, the parent will poo-poo it and say, so you have that social pressure. No one else is talking about it. And then you have so much coming in, in this worldly life, the child is being exposed to more and more as it's growing up. So there's a lot of things that can cover it up. But as Neil's pointing out, it didn't have that effect on him. So everybody has these memories. And as we clear our consciousness through different avenues that are there available, meditation or whatever works for us, we can uncover. So
Thank you. So everyone here, ask your questions, share your thoughts, insights, curiosities. Hmm.
Yeah, I would also add that you know, I have been in contact with a lot of these little beings, and they said, write a book, share our stories, okay? Talk about it, okay? And so that's what we've been doing for, since the 1980s. And then these books. So, that's why we have a lot of beautiful anecdotal stories, and it's worldwide. It's just there's so much now with the internet, and so this is becoming more and more common.
you want to speak about Cupid?
Well, yeah, there's this whole philosophy about Cupid, and the little beings firing arrows to get the parents together, and to have the pregnancies and to be born. And so this is a kind of an idea that goes back to ancient Greece and ancient Rome, several thousand years. But yet you'll find this idea of Cupid worldwide in the cultures, and it's not just something in Western civilization.
We could speculate that maybe Cupid is responsible for some of these conceptions that happen accidentally, unexpectedly. For example, one woman who conceived, she said, oh, I could feel the diaphragm slipping, and I felt good about it because I felt ready to have a child, even though my husband wasn't ready. And then when she told him she was pregnant, she said, well, we tried, but secretly she was real happy about it. Anyway, he wasn't quite ready, but that worked out. Let's see, what other examples? The diaphragm slipping.
Right. Oh, and IUDs too.
Yeah,
IUDs.
pregnancy.
Okay.
We had an example today.
Even if the mother is having a difficulty getting pregnant, when the time comes, it's like the doctors can't explain how the pregnancy happened. Okay, it should not have happened, and they'll warn the mother sometimes that you know we don't know if you're going to be able to carry the baby full term, and that was the case with Beverly. Okay, but we've heard this several times. So, despite all these so-called obstacles that the mothers may hear from the doctors, nonetheless, a lot of these pregnancies do go full term, and then the babies are born, and then they start talking about the difficulties maybe they encountered, like the little girl in Japan, Yui, who told her mother that the obstetrical nurse Tommy that she had a bad diet, and it was true.
Another accident we could say is some mothers get pregnant during menstruation. How do these things happen? Okay, so we feel that there's some kind of engineering happening behind the scenes, and maybe we could say that's the Cupid factor.
Yeah, yeah. There's, it's not necessarily just the being who's coming in to be born, but up in the the higher worlds, there are teams of beings that are working with the soul who is wanting to incarnate. And so they talk about looking at a computer screen and seeing potential parents, and we're hearing this worldwide. So I mean, after all, we're living in a very computerized, society these days worldwide. But nonetheless, a lot of the children report talking about looking at a computer screen, and then some people talk about seeing a portal where they're going to jump into a portal or a light tunnel, and they're going to go down and they're going to enter their mother. Okay, and so it's just the amount of miraculous events that happen is really it's been a very amazing learning experience for us.
We have a couple of hands raised. Tamar, yours went up first, and then we'll get to you, Ariel, and others. We don't hear you though, Tamar. Okay, we don't hear you still. Okay. She's going to type it. In the meantime, Yema, please share why there are so many premature births and conception through IVF from this lens. And conception, why there's so many premature births and conception through IVF from this lens. Yeah.
It's, yeah, that's not a territory we've spent a lot of time in, but it is very, I think the percentage is very low in terms of the success in these different procedures. So it's already part of the system. It's not a natural system, of course, and so technology just hasn't caught up with things. So I think that's part of the situation.
Well, I think another problem is there's a lot of pollution today in the foods, in the water, in the air. You can get clothing that may have some kind of, contaminants in it. I mean, it's a huge issue in terms of our indoor environment. So, and I can just say that the Centers for Disease Control in the U.S. has done 4 body burden surveys in the U.S. of 1,000 Americans in each one. They found people were heavily contaminated with synthetic chemicals, metals like lead, mercury. So there's just tremendous pollution problems. So, before somebody becomes pregnant, they should spend at least a year in a pure diet, pure water, purify your thoughts. Any kind of negativity is another barrier. So these are lessons that people can learn from, and then some of the babies that come out of these in vitro fertilization pregnancies, they talk about having brothers and sisters in cold places. They're in a test tube or whatever it is. They're storing the other embryos
in refrigeration.
Yeah. And so they're concerned because they say my brothers and sisters are freezing. They want to be let out. So there's this huge, controversy about what to do with these other embryos.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Yema. That's an amazing question. I will pop over to Tamar because she's been waiting, and then we'll get to you, Ariel. Tamar says, "I'm curious how many men you have stories about who report connections with the baby before birth. Most of your examples are with the mother, yet I've had 2 husbands who said they communicated with their children before birth and even conception."
Yes, that definitely happens. And we do have cases like that. And I think it depends how open and sensitive that father is. The more sensitive they are. So it's, in our society, unfortunately, there are some fathers who think it's the mother's business and they don't engage in any way. But we encourage the fathers to be communicating to the baby in the womb. And when they do, the relationship is off to a great start because that continues. That has a deep effect. If So fathers are very important, and I think it's just maybe a cultural thing but we do have experiences. I don't have a number in my mind how many are in the book, but definitely this is not, it can happen and does happen.
Oh, Neil and Carmen, or Neil and Elizabeth, it's so wonderful to be here with you. There's so many conversations I would love to have, but we can't do it now. Ariel, what have you for us, darling?
Hi. Yeah, my daughter is 4 years old now, and she her dad and I aren't together anymore, unfortunately. But when we were, she would say, like, when he and I were having a hard time, and she would be in the hallway. She was in the hallway, and she said, "My brother's lost. I can't find him." And it just, like, like, it was like shattering, to hear that, because it didn't, like, her dad's not spiritually out there at all, and if he, I mean, I probably cracked so much wide open around him that it scared him. But I mean, it's just, like, just how I am who I am, and was, thinking from this perspective that she's really connected to her future brother. And now, she says to me, sometimes sitting at the table when we're eating, that she's sad that I'm not giving her a baby brother, and it's really hard to hear that. But I told her that, it's, I feel connected to that baby, and and just, and things like that, and I reassure her, just, validate her. But it's, he would think, like, oh, it's just, kid being kid, using imagination stuff. But she was genuinely, like, confused, like, I don't know, just, where's my brother? My brother's lost. And I just really, yeah, like, it just wasn't the right time for a baby to come down again, and he and I came together very, in my mind, synchronistically. There's so much, like, beauty, and um just the spontaneity of her emergence into the world. She was not planned, and it was just really beautiful. It was a really beautiful story to me. But
Well,
I
there's also, Ariel, I would point out that there are a lot of twins in which one of the twins does not survive. Okay. There are actually some researchers who think we all start off as twins. And so that theory has been floating around. And twins are very interesting because there was a Italian researcher who studied twins in the womb and then after birth. And Dr. Piantelli found that in the womb, there were three types of twins. The twins that were very friendly to each other and were trying to hug and kiss, and they continued that after birth. And then there was another group that were indifferent. They didn't acknowledge that there was another twin, whether they were boys or girls, or boy and a girl. Then there was a third type in which they were fighting in the womb. They were kicking and pushing at each other. And Piantelli at first reported this in the late 1980s, but there was a big reaction in the psychiatric community, and she kind of pulled back from her research. But she found that there were three types of twins in the womb and three types of same types after birth, and that some of the children didn't get along, but then there were the ones that were very loving towards each other. So it's possible, I don't know, Ariel, that maybe your little girl had a boy twin that didn't survive in the womb.
Perhaps, yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Or maybe that little boy is going to be born when you have a different partner.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole world of possibility. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
I would not negate her experiences. I'm sure she's
No,
speaking true.
yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you all so, so much. We could make time for one more question or inquiry. If there's something burning inside your belly, please send, and please unmute yourself. Just jump in. That's how we roll around here. Just jump in. And I want to say that again, Elizabeth and Neil have provided us with some really, really great comprehensive PDFs. I really enjoyed those, Elizabeth and Neil. Thank you. We will send them to you. And there's some really, you gave us some really great guidance and outlines for how to communicate with these incredible souls that are choosing to come to planet Earth at this time, among lots of other info on there. So look out for that. And how else can our community connect with you through your books mainly, right?
Correct, correct. And just find us online. We have a Facebook page for Babies Are Cosmic. We have a Facebook page for Cosmic Cradles, Spiritual Dimensions of Life Before Birth. We have a YouTube Journey to Birth. You can find some interviews there and stories and presentations that we have done at various locations. There's a Substack page. Anyway, there, just Google it and you'll find us. And order the book from eBay. We have our own. We're selling it directly from us, so that's the best way to support our work, is to get the book through eBay. You can also get it on Amazon. We benefit there, but we're also sharing a lot more of it with somebody else. So.
Amazing. It's really an honor to have you both here together. You're embodying the cosmic love from where all beings really originate. And we thank you for being here together, for saying yes, and for continuing to be a voice for the voiceless, voice for the children, and also for the little children and little embryos that are so alive in each and every one of us. I have no doubt that everyone is going to dream tonight, wherever you are in the world and whenever you will go to bed. Pay attention to your dreams, pay attention in your meditations. Remember, no matter where you are on your journey, preconception, pregnant, include your baby as a participant in their lives. You were, I was, we all were participants in our lives from the time of preconception. And these souls are coming with remarkable, extraordinary purpose at this time. And it will be, I believe, quite difficult to look out into our world and find the guidance. They are guiding us into a new way of being in this world. So it's really important that we listen in a multidimensional way. It's incredible that we have you, Elizabeth, and you, Neil, to turn to lean on. You've set such a strong foundation for us to turn to, and I can't wait to hear all of your feedback. There were tons of people enrolled and signed up for this class who will watch the replay as well. We will continue to circulate this. We've had people signing up for it whilst we were in the call today as well. So we'll continue to circulate it. Any final remarks or anything?
Well, we just feel so blessed that all these years we've met so many amazing people, Victoria, like yourself, and Ashley, and the folks on this call. And we just continue to be amazed at the people we meet, everywhere. And especially worldwide today, it's so easy to communicate with people through the internet. And so we just are amazed at what we've found, and not just in the United States, but in Europe and Asia, Africa. It's just everywhere. So the consciousness is rising, and it's being expressed through these amazing babies that want to be born, and through the rising consciousness in women to give birth, and the fathers. Okay, so it really helps for couples to be together if possible, so we just thank you very much, all of you. Okay.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.